Whcr 90.3 FM, New York.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way.
Good morning. Welcome to Mental Health for Better Living. I'm your host, Dr. Leon Dickerson. Mental Health for Better Living is a show that explores the challenges to mental well-being, and as a collective group of concerned individuals, both lay and professional, together we address multiple mental health problems and then focus on solutions as they impact the individual, the family, spiritual life, and our community. You can listen to us also by logging on to www.whcr.org this morning. Click on the Listen Live button and you can even see us right here in the studio. I'm a psychotherapist with an office right here in the village of Harlem. I will provide more information about my practice at the end of the show. Mental Health for Better Living has designated the second Monday of the month to focus on addiction and related topics that will bring attention and solutions to substance abuse problems that affect the individual, family systems, spiritual life, and our community. We are hoping to open up an ongoing dialogue around addiction and addiction issues that impact our community. Since I was on vacation on the second Monday in July, I still wanted to bring a very important topic to the public regarding the merging of two state agencies, OASIS and OMH. OASIS is the acronym for Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services, and OMH is the acronym for Office of Mental Health. These two agencies are quite different in what they do in terms of dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues. However, they are talking about merging, and we're going to be talking about that today. And I will definitely entertain call-ins this morning because we're going to talk about this subject, and we are not. It's still up in the air in terms of how people feel about it. There are forums that are going on, which I will mention in a minute. But so anybody can call in that may have more information, more feelings and thoughts about another merger that's going on between two state agencies. And we still have drug problems just as bad as it were back in 1973. So we have to really talk about this. Today we're going to have with us our returning guest, Mr. Curtis Evans. Mr. Evans was born and raised in Columbus, Georgia. After meeting with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Julian Bond, he joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, and taught literacy classes in various Negro Baptist churches in Mississippi until he graduated high school. Mr. Evans began his undergraduate college studies at Penn State University and was drafted into the Army during his second year of college. After receiving an honorable discharge as a decorated veteran of the Vietnam era, he returned to complete college. Mr. Evans has a master's degree certificate in public health and a concentration in hospital administration, a master's degree in human services, and a postgraduate certificate in community health care centers. Currently, he is a credentialed alcoholism counselor and substance abuse counselor, a credential prevention professional, CPP, and a New York State OASIS faculty member and chief. OASIS is the acronym again for Office of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Mr. Evans developed the curriculum for the KSAC 350-hour certificate program at Narco Freedom Incorporated under the program Freedom Institute. The KSAC, I'm going to have Mr. Curtis Evans tell us about his thoughts on the merger. So, Mr. Evans, welcome to Mental Health for Better Living.
Good morning, Doctor. Thank you for having me again.
Wonderful, wonderful. The last time we were together, we were listening to lyrics and how drugs and use of drugs was mentioned, and I think we had a good time on that show.
It was an excellent show.
You know, to see how somehow drugs are sort of supported and romanticized, okay, in music, but yet the reality is we have two agencies merging, okay, to still fight what is still considered a raging epidemic, okay, in our society. So we're going to briefly get into the merger, but I would like to announce over the air, okay, that the New York Association of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services has been conducting forums in which the public has been given opportunities to come in and voice their opinions and concerns. They've had two already. The first one was July 13th, July 14th, three, and July 22nd. Now there's two more, I'm going to read them off. In August, on August 18th at 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., there's probably two different meetings, 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. at Malloy College Suffolk Center. That's 7180 Republic Airport, Farmingdale, New York, and that's 11735. And on August 20th, 3 p.m. and 5:30 p.m., is going to be held at the Buffalo Library, 1 Lafayette Square in Buffalo. And for those of us who may have missed the New York field office meeting, I believe you can still call Miss Kathleen Campbell. She's the Director of Public Policy, okay, at the New York Association of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Providers. And her phone number is 518-426-3122. That's 518-426-3122. And I'm quite sure she will update us and send you information on what's going on with this this conversation that we're now working on in terms of these agencies merging. Mr. Evans, we're going to really go into it, but let me just give a brief background.
Please, Doctor.
In terms of all these merging, okay? As you and I, we were discussing off the air, that in the very beginning of substance abuse services, no one paid attention much to it because they didn't know how to.
Right.
And a lot of these programs were started from recovering people themselves. They were called ex-addicts.
Yes.
Okay, and they ran the programs and they had the groups and what have you. And then we realized that addiction wasn't just drinking and drugging. There was a whole lot of other stuff going on with a person who was using substances, okay, to alter his state of mind. There was the family involvement, there was community involvement. We have now crime that increased. We have during the 80s was the twin epidemic of the HIV/AIDS. Problems came about, and we found out that substance abuse, okay, is connected to a lot of social illnesses. Okay, but during the progression and during the how can I put it, the evolution, okay, of what we have today, which is OASIS. Okay. Back before June 23rd, okay, there was no OASIS. There was two separate programs, okay, state agencies that dealt with substance use disorders, SUDs, okay? One was the New York State Division of Substance Abuse Services. We call that DSAS. And the other one was the New York State Division of Alcoholism and Alcohol Abuse, okay? So we're looking at two different agencies, okay? The fiscal year of 1992 to 1993, DAAA, employed 636 employees and had a total annual budget of approximately $114 million. DSAS, the Division of Substance Abuse Services, employed 345 employees and had an annual budget of 280. Now, the two agencies, there were many reasons for consolidating back then. They wanted to address the merging special populations that were coming on before 1987. And I'm only going by my own experience. You could not mention substance abuse on any level in a mental health program.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could, but, basically their approach was not, dealing with drugs as we, were dealing with in substance abuse programs. But I believe, and this is just my own experience, that during the AIDS epidemic, okay, and also the cocaine crack epidemic.
Yes.
Okay, we call those the twin epidemics. Okay,
Right.
I believe that really scrambled, a lot of treatment, facilities to the point where they didn't know what they were dealing with. For example, let's say a person had a cocaine break, psychosis that was brought on by smoking crack. They would go to the emergency room. They were admitted into a unit. Okay, they were given a bed. And the next morning, this person is telling the doctors, "Hey, listen, I got to go to work. I'm late for work." And the doctor, "Well, wait a minute. I'm reading here that you are psychotic. You had a psychotic." Oh, okay. So now the mental health arena had to now do a little research and do a little, do some homework. Okay, and also the chemical dependency, arena had to do some homework, and that's why we got, I think, MICAs and CAMIs.
Yes.
Mr. Evans.
Okay. Now, let's just talk about the characteristics of a MICA person. A MICA person is an individual who exhibits severe mental illness. It exists independent of the substance abuse. Persons would meet the diagnostic criteria of a major mental illness, even if there were no substance abuse problems present. I think it's important to know that. And one of the questions that I have, and I think that, Doc, I'd like you to address this at some point, does mental health is it caused by prolonged usage of substance abuse? That's a question that I want to deal with during this forum, because I think that's something we need to take a look at. Now, MICA persons usually require medications to control their psychotic illness. If the medication is stopped, specific symptoms are likely to emerge or worsen. But yet, these people are really not considered folks who we don't really know whether or not, if we allowed them to continue to on their way doing what they're doing, whether or not they would actually get better or not. Probably more not. Okay, than. But anyway, that's another area I want to get into. MICA persons, even when in remission, frequently display the residual effects of major psychiatric disorders. For an example, schizophrenia, such as a marked social isolation or withdrawal, a blunted or inappropriately affect and marked lack of initiative, interest, or energy. Evidence of these residual effects often differentiates MICA from population of substance abusers who are not severely mentally ill.
Right.
Very interesting statement here, Doc. I think that there's a need for a lot more research in this area. I don't think that there's a lot there. But anyway, let's go down to the next one. Let's just talk about CAMI for a moment.
Sure.
CAMI patients have severe substance dependence, alcoholism, whatever, heroin, cocaine, and frequently have multiple substance abuse and or polysubstance abuse or addictions. CAMI persons usually require treatment in alcohol or drug treatment programs. The issue is this. My personal experience is that a number of people who are CAMIs end up getting the treatment of MICA. During the 45 days of assessment that a psychiatrist takes to make the decision of whether or not I'm going to give this person a medication or not, or whether or not the diagnosis can be established, many times that allows the client who are CAMI to actually move into this population of MICA clients. And I think that that's something that we need to critically look at, because I would say that there's a number of folks who are not mentally ill who are receiving mental illness treatment. And once you get into that population, there's very little you can do to get out of it.
Yeah, because now, excuse me, your treatment is being documented. You have to be given a diagnosis. We all know that in order to get paid for treating anybody, you got to first diagnose them. Okay, so if you misdiagnose a person, you're treating somebody for something that they may not even have. And I think when you bring up CAMIs, CAMIs are basically people who are primarily addicted to drugs.
Yes.
Okay, but drugs makes us, act crazy.
Sure.
Sure. And so when we present, in front of a clinician, or any psychiatrist that knows anything about addiction is not going to immediately admit a person who says I do cocaine and I do heroin on the weekends, into some psychiatric arena.
Yes.
Okay, he's going to tell that person, listen, come back in like 8 weeks,
Sure.
and stay off drugs for 8 weeks, and then we'd come back and then we'll take another look at this mental picture. Now, let's say if a person is addicted to something, they will not be sober in 8 weeks.
No.
Okay, and so what that does is that gives the psychiatrist a basic indication that this person may need to deal with the drugs first.
Right. And Doc, firsthand experience on my part, during that 8 weeks or whatever period of time that you're making this assessment of the client is bouncing off the wall.
Yeah.
And, it's very difficult to manage from a clinical point of view. A client like this, a client is in group, and the client is acting out. The client is exhibiting all kind of mental illness symptoms, and the other population is saying, what are you doing with this person? So it's a very difficult situation to manage. So what happens is oftentimes clients are sent to the emergency room and treated as a MICA client or as a mentally ill client. And once they get the assessment in the emergency room is very quick.
Right. I'm smiling because when I back in '87, I'm talking about '87, this would be a good year, I worked at Bronx Lebanon Hospital, up-and-coming, counselor. So each month we would have the director of psychiatry come over to do what was called grand rounds. And this guy would walk in, I'm not going to mention his name, he would walk into the meeting and he would say, before I get started, he said, I don't want to hear anything about easy does it. I don't want to hear one day at a time. I don't want to hear that. Let's talk about the person that we're dealing with from a mental health perspective, right?
Yes.
Now, this is interesting. Also, in that same meeting was our psychiatrist, our in-house psychiatrist who came to the meeting and he saw a patient or whatever. This fellow, he knew his stuff. Okay, he would nod off and on. We would be talking about A, B, C, D. He'd be nod. But when he heard, certain things that were said about an addict, for instance, let's say John Doe he did time in jail for manslaughter. Okay, he killed the person. Dr. So-and-so would open his eyes and look and say, excuse me, he did what? He says, well, he did 10 years for manslaughter. He says, well, when he killed the person, was he drunk or was he sober? Okay, now if the counselor, if the person who did the assessment said, well, he was sober, Dr. So-and-so would say, I need to see him in my office.
Yes. And, as a result of that kind of scrutiny, we now have the drug courts. And a number of people who would actually be in prison doing time have been sent to treatment programs. They've been mandated to treatment programs. So I'd like to just note that that's some progress being made in terms of that whole approach and that whole school of thought. We really do need to provide treatment with clients. But I think that one of the challenges is how do we go about doing it, because there are some disparities. There are some people who are actually capable of doing this type of treatment, but I would think that the bulk of folk really need to be educated in this area. It's a crucial area, Doctor.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now talking about the merging of two state agencies, OMH and OASIS, and Mr. Curtis Evans and myself agreed before we even got on the air, that we're just discussing this. We're very limited in terms of what's actually happening on that level, because we still have the open forums going on. There hasn't been any decisions that I can know of that are being made. So I'm inviting people to call in. Our number is 212-650 212-650-6903. That's 212-650-6903. And maybe you can add some light to our ongoing conversation this morning. Okay. Now, the term, excuse me, when we look at OASIS, Office of Mental Health Services, Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services, and OMH, Office of Mental Health Services, okay, we are looking at agencies, okay, that came about just as DAAA did, okay, for alcoholism and DSAS.
Yes.
And I remember working in both agencies back then during my career. When I worked at a DSAS funded agency, Division of Substance Abuse Services, our primary client had to use hard drugs. Okay, and I remember doing the assessment, trying to glean out of this person, I don't use drugs, I only use alcohol.
Yes.
Okay, so that person was supposed to be referred maybe to a DAAA agency. So there was a lot of issues in terms of the admission process. Okay, if a person said many times, yes, I do use heroin, I do use, but he may have been talking about heroin or cocaine as a secondary, something that I'll do if it's there. But my primary drug of choice is alcoholism. So that person may have been admitted, into a DSAS program when based on state agency mandates, he should have been admitted into a DAAA. And so those issues went back and forth, and someone came up with the idea of, something, maybe alcohol and heroin are just substances
Yes.
that fall under the same, definition, which is it creates a behavior, okay, that causes people to get in trouble, and despite the trouble people get into, they continue the behavior, which is the drinking and the drugging. So if we can look at substance use under that umbrella,
Right.
then we can treat everybody.
Yes.
Okay, you
Yeah.
see, but still what lingers on is the mental health issue.
Right. Well, not only that, Doctor, I personally have had to go through a similar kind of development in my career. And I remember there's some very distinct differences between a person who's an alcoholic and a person who's a substance abuser, exclusively. Now, when you mix the two, then you got to, that's what you got. You got a mixed bag in terms of the person. That's why we came up with the subject of polysubstance abuse. But there are some things that just don't happen with addicts that who are dealing with drugs. And of course, the differences between an alcoholic and a person who's using drugs is they're kind of distinct. Here's some of the things I remember, and much of this was brought to my attention by working with clients. I used to do a group, and with the groups, I don't have the privilege of having who I want in a particular group. When you did a group, everyone is in there. You have people in there with methadone. You have people in there who are drug users. You have people who are alcoholics, and the clients would identify to me, well, he doesn't act like an addict. He acts like an alcoholic. And alcoholics would say, I don't want to have anything to do with this person over here. I don't even want to sit next to them because that's a crack abuser.
A crackhead, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to be involved with a crackhead. These things that he's talking about, I never experienced those kind of things. Alcohols don't give me that kind of effect. Why do I have to deal with these folks here? You take them somewhere else and deal with that kind of stuff, because I never had that. I never demeaned myself, by doing some of the things that the crack people do. So I think that we're having a similar situation now as it relates to mental health, because clients who are mentally ill are people who I think require special kinds of treatment. Even though we're pulling everyone together, it seems like there's a real need for us to be able to, from a clinical perspective, deal with each person according to their background.
Yeah, and again, I hear that. Okay, but again, are we going on a wild goose chase again? Because if there's such a need right now to merge a mental health agency with a chemical dependency substance abuse agency, why wasn't that done 30 years ago? I mean, what new information do we have now?
Well, I think one of the things we need to take a look what's the motivation here?
Yeah.
Is it clinical, or is it financial?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one thing. I sort of suspect I'm not a very happy camper these days. I thought because I'm near retirement, and I thought back in 1976 when I first became a drug counselor that we were going to destroy the idea of drugs. There would be, by the time 2000 came along, there would be no more drugs. Okay, I was going to be the super drug fighter.
Yes.
And we know that's not true. We know now there's more drugs in our society. Okay, that we can shake our fist at. Okay, so now the issue is now what's behind all this?
Yes.
This is what I think is behind it. Now, it may not be. That's why I got the phones open. If anybody want to call and say, Dr. Dickerson, you're crazy, or meet you outside, or whatever you want to do, you can do it. Okay, but I remember working in an agency where there was concern that Medicaid, the Department of Health, were now seeing that a lot of Medicaid clients, who had spent time, even graduated drug programs, are now showing up
Yes.
in OMH programs.
Yes. Right. Well, I have to go back to something that several people who would say to me, who were lay people, if you keep using that drug long enough, it's going to drive you crazy.
Okay.
So I think that maybe that beckons my question again in terms of, does substance abuse, prolonged, extensive, does that really affect one to the point where you become mentally ill? And I think that that's a question that we need to approach from a research scientific point of view. Now, I know as a counselor that I've never really had a client who had prolonged uses of PCP who was ever able to come out of the, let's say, CAMI state. They would become drug free. But the residual, which you aptly pointed out here, continues to be there for a longer period of time. There's something I call K2 that people are using, which also seem to have a similar effect. So I want to really encourage, motivate, stimulate discussion and also research in this area to find out just whether or not we're using drugs to the point where we are actually altering. We know that that drugs is a mood-altering substance, but the question is, how much of an altering is being done? Is the altering more permanent than we realize? Can a person really actually, after being in a substance abuse arena for an extended period of time, can they really ever go back to where they were before? We have some research that says, we can recover, but there's other that said, well, if you start using early enough, then your development, the growth is in certain areas is stopped. At least it's retarded. So that's something that I think that the merging of these two groups probably is going to address at some point.
I do believe that they're going to have to. They're going to be obligated to. Because again, playing Medicaid devil's advocate or something. I'm the Medicaid man. I'm the Medicaid police or whatever.
Right.
Okay. You're telling me, all these great things are happening in society. You're doing things, but Johnny just got billed for mental health services, and we were paying, for Johnny's treatment over here at the alcohol place. And so my question to the same clinicians, is, what are we paying for? Is he a CAMI, or is he a MICA, or is he just a plain, as a street term, dope fiend? And if he's any one of those things, what is treatment? What are you doing with this human being, that is still out there either going crazy off the drugs or crazy before the drugs? Because when we talk about MICA, a lot of folks don't realize that a MICA patient is a very severely mentally ill person.
Absolutely.
And as a matter of fact, in order to get into a MICA residence, they used to call them New York agreements.
Yes.
And they had level 1, level 2.
Absolutely.
And most of the MICA programs are level 2. Which means that before you can even admit a person into that type of residence, they have to be seriously mentally ill and homeless for a certain amount, I think about a year of homelessness, and because they have to meet some very strict criteria.
Yes.
Now, when you get that type of person, in a MICA program, and you have counselors that are trained only in chemical dependency, what do we got there?
Yes, right. we have a mixed match. And you know, Doc, it's interesting. I'm thinking as we're talking about the closing of the asylums and the fact that we're not dealing with mental health in the manner that we were doing prior to that. We used to cart people off and put them away someplace.
Yeah.
Now they're in our prisons, and more than not, they're on the streets as homeless people. So we have to provide treatment. So I'm wondering whether or not the merger of these two organizations is saying that, hey, you know, the ball has been thrown to us to do something about not only substance abuse, but about some of the social ills that's associated with mental illness.
You know what, Mr. Evans, I'm into merging anything at this point, merging everybody, because, you know, people are still talking about some form of epidemic, of some drug epidemic that's going on. And a young lady, her name is Miss Ellen Morehouse. She's a licensed social worker and a KSAC, and a CPP. She submitted her testimony to the Joint Senate Task Force on Heroin and Opiate Addiction. And it's very interesting. It's a wonderfully constructed testimony here. But she points out things that would grab my eye. The second paragraph on the second page, she says, the heroin crisis has created a huge challenge for prevention and treatment providers. Okay, now, what heroin, I mean, this is another heroin crisis. We had a heroin crisis back in 1996, 76 rather, where all of New York City was doped up in California. Okay, we called that the epidemic. That was the drug epidemic. Okay, and so, and then President Nixon came out with the war on drugs in 1973, and he allocated, I believe at that time, was about $83 million, to eradicate drugs. As we know, at the election of Obama practically 8 years ago, that the annual budget to deal with addiction had risen to, I think, $2.3 billion.
Yes.
I mean, astronomical, which means what? Drugs are still here.
Yes, yes.
Okay, as a matter of fact, there's so much here that you can get on any airplane and go to any state in the union.
Yes.
And get off the plane and go to the parking lot. Okay, I've mentioned this before. And don't get a bootleg cab, get a yellow cab.
Yes.
Okay, and sit in that cab and say, sir, I want to go buy drugs.
Yes.
Take me where the drugs are.
Sure.
Now, this cab driver may not know who's selling the drugs,
right,
but he can take you to the vicinity
absolutely
of where the drugs are. And now someone may say, well, how does he know the vicinity of drugs? Because he doesn't pick up people there. The last time he picked up Johnny, he got robbed.
Yeah.
Okay, you see, so why is that? Why can we take a plane to any state in America? Okay, and then when you get to that state, the drugs are concentrated in only certain areas. What is that about?
I think that part of it has to do with the fact that the social ills that's associated with people who are grassroots is so complex. We say in treatment is that we're talking about a simple problem for complicated people. I think the complication is really more has to do with a social economic fabric that we have here in the society, that we really don't know just what to do with people in order to bring them up to speed, so to speak. Also, you have to factor in that maybe we don't want to.
Okay, all right.
Maybe we don't want to really treat people equally.
Okay. All right.
Maybe we don't want to provide the services to certain folks. We want to be able to compare where we are with people who are not where we are in order for us to feel better.
And that brings us back. That's why I mentioned in the beginning of the show. We're going to take a break in a minute. The last time you and I were together on the air, we were listening to music, that sort of romanticized drug use. Okay, so we have this war going on, and the question was back then, do we address these artists? Because, in terms of art forms, you have a lot of leeway to express yourself, okay? A boxer gets in the ring and he beats someone halfway to death with his fists, but that's a sport, okay, if it's done a certain way. So if I'm going to mention heroin, or like my good friend I'm losing his name. Anyway, he in hard drugs, he was singing Gregory Isaacs. Okay, right. And his hit record, back in the 80s. He was talking about hard drugs, okay, and we want more. We want, okay, but if if you listen to the music, if you listen to the lyrics, you're listening to something very serious.
Yes.
But if you listen to the music that's accompanying the lyrics, you're dancing.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
you see, you're dancing. Okay?
You're romanticizing.
You're romanticizing it,
Absolutely.
okay? And so
Absolutely.
now, okay, when you look at the damage that's done, okay, and so now when these two companies, state agencies, decide to merge Oasis and OMH, okay, the question is, and I really appreciate the fact that they're making it a public forum.
Yes.
Okay, because I think I would have a lot to say at those meetings. After 40 years of being a drug counselor, we still got dope on the street.
I'm sure.
Okay, that makes me feel pretty bad, to say the least, okay?
Doc, I want to just say something, that one of the documents that is circulating among providers is a letter from Leon Rodriguez, who is the director of civil rights, who points out to us that in light of all of the tragedies that we've had out, that we as providers are on the front line, and we need to begin to make assessments as quickly as possible for people who might fall into these two categories, because there's an association between the Columbine, the shootings, and all the things that are happening in terms of even recruiting people for ISICs, that many of these people have mental health backgrounds and substance abuse activities in their lives. So maybe we can address this after the break.
Okay.
But this is something that we need to point out.
Okay, you're listening to Mental Health for Better Living, Whcr 90.3 FM. I'm your host, Dr. Leon Dickerson, and today we have with us Mr. Curtis Evans, and we're discussing the changing administration of substance and mental health services, mainly the possible merging of Oasis and OMH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Don't touch that dial. Keep it locked on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue sky.
New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, are you ready? The New York Empowerment Summit 2015, presented by Glory of God Christian Center, is here at the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden at the theater. Labor Day weekend, Saturday, September the 5th and Sunday, September the 6th. Guest speakers, Dr. Roderick Caesar, Dr. Jasmine Scolar, Bishop Tudor Bismarck, Reverend Margaret Elaine Flakes, with more to be added. Artists appearing, Ty Tribbett, Dorinda Clark Cole, Tasha Cobb, Bishop Hezekiah Walker, Pastor Shirley Caesar, Pastor Marvin Sapp, CeCe Winans, Whcr, Kevin Downswell, Marva Providence, Martha Munizzi, Wes Morgan, and more. You can purchase your pre-sale discount tickets at Ticketmaster.com or at Madison Square Garden box office number 866-858-0008. Information on Saturday, September the 5th conferences and workshop facilitators. You can call NewYorkEmpowermentSummit.com at 877-354-9036. This is Dalton Anderson, your MC for the New York Empowerment Summit 2015 at the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Welcome back to Mental Health for Better Living. Today we're talking with Mr. Curtis Evans about the changing administration of substance abuse services and mental health services, mainly the possible merging of OASIS and OMH. On the break, before the break, I had mentioned how widespread drugs were in our communities, and that you can get into a cab and go to any, ask that cab driver to take you to where the drugs are. And basically, the message was basically poor neighborhoods, But we are now on the break. We were discussing that the epidemic now is reaching into affluent areas. Where it wasn't before. So maybe I just gave away my age at that point in time now, but that brings in more complications, okay, in terms of what's going on now with this drug epidemic, where you have people who are now being impacted that never were impacted before.
Absolutely, Doc, and I think that we need to ask a couple of questions. Where are we headed? Have we become so desensitized that this epidemic or crisis that we're referring to no longer phases us? Or the priorities in our lives shifted to the point where we're going to be consumed by this problem, and it's going to become increasingly more dangerous to our well-being as a society, and we're just sort of like being, I don't know, it seems like we're in hammocks here, just sleeping away as the place goes downhill, the society goes down. Is that a question that I should?
It's definitely. I mean, that's a very, very valid question to entertain and to even ask. Okay, because when you look at America, let's take America for instance. Okay, this was an agricultural situation with the founding fathers. It was mostly products that were farmed. Okay, the working situation, you worked harder. Okay, I remember, I was talking to my doctor once, and he said, Dr. Dickerson, he said, you're going to have to get up off your butt and do some exercise. He said, because the laborious jobs you guys used to do, used to get rid of that bad cholesterol.
Yes.
Okay, you see, he says now everybody's sitting on their butts, okay, and so you got heart attacks and things that are going on. Sure. So I think that as we became more modernized, with all this technology, America has a need for less people to run America. America is run by technical gadgets, computers. Okay, so even today, if you go to the bank, I can't remember the last time I stood in front of a teller because I do all my banking now at an ATM machine. I put the checks in, I take the checks out, everything is done. So what happened to those individuals that were working behind, you can't even make a phone call today, and get a live person. I mean, you're batting 1,000 if someone says hello, yes. But you're usually going to get some type of machine talking to you. What happened to the human beings? Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is that the more people that are out there with all this time and space, are they more accessible, to using drugs?
Yes. Absolutely. And you know what? One of the things that was the support system of us all was a family. Now, in the process of us having the drugs in our society, we're losing a major support system, and that is a stable lucid, strength-oriented family that will say, Curtis, listen, it's time for you to do something about that issue, whatever the issue is. The coming together and having what I like to refer to, people say there's no such thing as common sense, but I beg to differ, because there was a lot of it when I was coming along that says, listen, there are just certain things that we're not going to accept from you. So don't even entertain it. That kind of support we don't have anymore. Everyone is doing their own thing. Okay, so and it's not live and let live. Is what people say, and that's something that I think has really sort of allowed us to sort of like, get too far away from some of the basic things that keep us intact.
Well, of course, the religious community, in particular the Christians, who are very concerned about how God is being taken out of everything. It started with prayer being taken out of the schools, and I'm talking across the board here. I'm not just talking about Christianity, I'm talking about Islam, I'm talking about every type of religion, that you can think of right now. There's certain limitations now, that these religious agencies, institutions enjoy that they don't enjoy anymore because, we're just going to be sort of insulting someone if we talk about Jesus or if we talk about Allah, whatever the case may be. But the fact of the matter is this, there was a time, where if my kid were seen smoking a cigarette, by a community person, they would be confronted. They were allowed to approach my child and say, what are you doing with that cigarette in your mouth? I'm going to tell your mother, you say, or your father, your parents, and that was a very powerful thing, that when I got home, that my mother was able to say, come here, you brought a pack of matches at Mr. Arroyo's Bodega store? What are you doing? You smoking cigarettes? I continued, to smoke cigarettes, but it did slow down the process a little bit, because I had respect, for my parents, and the church, and even adults. Now let me just say this, I don't know if anybody can identify with this. When I first started smoking cigarettes, I was 14 years old, and I would be walking down the street with a cigarette. Any adult that was coming toward me, I'd hide the cigarette.
Yeah.
I didn't have to know that person. All they had to be was an adult.
Yes.
Today, you better be careful with these kids because they'll shoot you.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And that's a very powerful statement you make. Not that they'll curse you out or that they'll be sassy to you or tell you to go mind your business. They will pull a gun and blow you away.
Blow you away.
I think we're at the point where it's time for us to turn this thing around. Okay, because it means actually life or death.
Yeah.
Nothing is more crucial than that.
Yeah, but I think today's climate, and I don't know how many of us are thinking about this, but it's almost like America is being challenged by the democratic ideals that we held so strongly. It's sort of like, people have rights now. You can't do certain things. You can't say certain things to people because you're going to violate some rule or some law. In terms of maybe even maintaining the peace.
Right.
Okay.
But the democratic process is very good, Doc, as long as you have love and caring associated with it. You can give a person the right to say, well, you can do what the hell you want to do. I remember back in the colonial period when the first revolt happened. It really happened with white people who were indentured servants who was given their freedom and nothing else. They used to be given a certain number of tools and a certain plot of land, but then after slavery came into play, they said, no, you're free, you go and make it on your own. Well, that was a revolt as a result of that. So people need to be given not only the freedom to do things, but the support to carry it out. That's very, very important.
Right. The contradiction is, the paradox actually is, we have this very, very serious drug problem. We have an alcoholic, who keeps going in and out of treatment, and he drinks the first day he gets on the street. We know that this person is killing himself, has already destroyed his family, but yet that person can walk across the street, go sit in a bar, okay, and that it is his right to purchase, a glass of gin,
Yes, absolutely.
and nobody can do anything about it.
Some of the frustration that has occurred as a result of that phenomena is that you had treatment programs who said we need to practice tough love. And some of the love that was practiced in terms of this tough love was downright persecution. So we're frustrated with, well, how do we stop this? Okay, how do we stop this? How do we truly, helping people is an art. You really have to have a certain knowledge in terms of how to go about assisting a person. You may have all of the good intentions, but there's an art and associated with helping an individual, truly helping them.
Right.
Right. And that's something we need to get back to.
Exactly. In closing out the program today, we were discussing the possible merging of OASIS and OMH, two separate state agencies. And there's going to be a lot of, debate about it. Okay. But, what comes to my mind, if I get an opportunity to talk, okay, is this, okay, going all the way back to how we treat these particular, problems. Like, for instance, like back in 1987, okay, mental health, okay, arena had their own little comfortable spot. Chemical dependency had their own comfortable spot, and they didn't join. And I believe it was the twin epidemic and the crack epidemic that forced the marriage between mental health and substance abuse services. But there's a fact that remains, and this is this. A mental health person, a person who is solely committed to mental health, believes that Johnny's problem, okay, is symptomatic of other things.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
All right? A pure alcohol substance abuse counselor don't particularly buy into that.
No.
They don't believe that Johnny drinks because Johnny has problems.
Right.
They believe that Johnny's drinking is his problem.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Two complete schools of thought.
Okay? Because Johnny only gets in trouble
When he drinks.
And if we can get Johnny to not drink, no trouble.
Right. Yeah. The people say all the time, if you don't pick up, that's the most important thing you can do.
Okay, so now the question is, how does that tie into mental health? Those two separate approaches, okay, to a problem. Okay, I do believe that Johnny can be depressed, okay, and also an alcoholic. But before we deal with his depression, we have to find out, is his depression based on his behavior, his drinking behavior? Okay, so if we can get Johnny to stop drinking, then of course the mental illness that may, be there will emerge.
The assessment process should start and never stop.
Exactly. Now, getting back also one more thing before we get off the air, we spoke about how alcoholics felt as opposed to hardcore drug addicts. Okay, actually, that's how Narcotic Anonymous came into play. Okay, because the AA, the people who were going to Alcoholic Anonymous, the drinkers, didn't want to associate with hardcore drug addicts. Okay, even the meetings are different. You'll hear more profanity, okay, at Narcotic Anonymous meetings. Okay, AA meetings are more like laid back or whatever. Okay, but you'll hear some loud stuff at NA meetings. Okay, although they both serve the purpose. Okay, now let's say if a person has mental health issues.
Yes.
They were also kicked out of NA.
Yes.
Because you're using a drug.
Sure.
Okay, that's when we had to develop what was called Double Trouble.
Right.
Okay, which is the 12-step program
Absolutely.
for mentally ill people that are on medications. Okay, so I don't even think we scratched the tip of the iceberg.
No, we haven't.
Morning.
There's still a mystery that needs to be, solved here.
And we're going to bring this back again. And then hopefully by the next time we meet, which is going to be the second Monday in August, we'll have more information on this forum, what has happened, if any decisions have taken place, okay?
I look forward to it.
Beautiful, okay? Again, I had a beautiful time this morning with you, Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir. Same here, Doctor.
Look forward to working with you. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, my name is Dr. Leon Dickerson, and I have private practice right here in Harlem. And you can give me a call at 212-289-6012. That's 212-289-6012. Goodbye.
Harlem has its own radio station. For you and yours, WHCR 90.3 FM.
The loudest party in the whole universe.
The voice of Harlem.
WHCR 90.3 FM will broadcast live from Harlem Week 2015. On Saturday, August 15th, from 12 noon to 5 p.m., we will broadcast in front of Gallery M, located at 123 West 135th Street, between Lenox Avenue and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard. Your favorite DJs will spin the latest tunes. Come meet them and your favorite talk show host. On Sunday, August 16th, from 12 noon to 5 p.m., we will broadcast in front of the Harlem Hospital Center, located at 135th Street at the corner of Lenox Avenue. The host of Health in Harlem, Maurice Selby and Sean Shivers, will take their show to the streets of Harlem. They will talk to doctors from Harlem Hospital Center about health issues that affect our community. That's WHCR 90.3 FM's live broadcast during Harlem Week 2015, Saturday, August 15th and Sunday, August 16th.
Veterans have difficulty transitioning their military skills into civilian jobs. In New York City, an estimated 17,300 veterans are unemployed. Are you a veteran in desperate need of help? Do you want to take advantage of a life-changing opportunity? If so, the 369th Veterans Outreach Program is designed to assist veterans in Harlem and surrounding communities. Veteran services include resume preparation, interview workshops, access to interview attire, and reliable transportation. For more information, call the 369th Veterans Outreach Program at 646-533-9292.
Nurse, set up an IV. And you, her boyfriend, you were the driver?
Yes, doctor, but I didn't mean to hurt her. I only had a few drinks. I was just buzzed.
Just buzzed? Oh, then your girlfriend is fine.
Hey, sweetie. I feel great.
She's really okay?
What, are you kidding? No, not really. Nurse, get me a suture kit. Stat.
Buzzed driving. Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Ad Council.
Harlem has its own radio station, WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
It's not always easy being a dad.
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now.
What? What do you mean she's not coming?
But it's always worth it.
It's the fairy princess!
It is I, Grooves Zinkelpel.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
I know it's really you, Drew. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Hi, you're listening to WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Entretenimiento, farándula, deportes, noticias, comentarios y mucho más. Variedades latinas es música, alegría, entretenimiento, farándula, deportes, noticias, comentarios y mucho más. Variedades latinas es música, alegría, entretenimiento, farándula, deportes, noticias, comentarios y mucho más.
Dígale, se va a caer esta vaina otra vez. Que se caiga, hombre. Arrancó la jodiendo otra vez.
¡Chupa, vicioso!
¡Rico, no!
La fiesta buena ya empezó. Vamos todos a hacer un rumbo, que llega el mes del vacilón. Si tú no goza, gozo yo. Si tú no baila, bailo yo. Si tú no comes, como yo. Si tú no chupas, chupo yo.
Esa vaina está encendida, está cogiendo candela. Usted va a beber de todo. Esa vaina se jodió. Usted va a beber de todo. Esa vaina se jodió. Ay, ay, ay.
Llora. no canta de pena, la gallina ni cacarea, el pavo está desesperado, el pato no encuentra qué hacer, el puerco grita, grita y grita.
Esta vaina está encendida, está cogiendo candela, hoy se va a beber de todo, esta vaina se jodió, hoy se va a beber de todo, esta vaina se jodió, ay, ay, ay,
llora,
ay, ay, ay,
grita,
ay, 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 ay,
vamos todos para la calle, que la parranda ya se armó, por donde quiera hay un fiestón, por donde quiera un colmadón, un olorcito a fruta fresca, un olorcito a cocinado, también un bajito embriagado, mucha gente resacao, con ese humo que se han dado.
esta vaina está encendida, está cogiendo de todo, esta vaina se jodió, ay, ay, ay,
Llora,
ay, ay,
grita,
ay, 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 ay,
nadie tiene que soy. Ese es Raúl Román. Nadie puede con esta vaina. Diego Rodríguez, que me siguen atrás. ¡Ah! Vamos todos para la calle, que la parranda ya se armó. Por donde quiera hay un fiestón, por donde quiera un colmadón, un olorcito a fruta fresca, olorcito a cocinado, también un bajito embriagado, mucha gente resacao, con ese humo que se han dado.
esta vaina está encendida, está cogiendo
Y beban
hoy se va a beber de todo, esta vaina se jodió, hoy se va a beber de
por
todo,
también.
esta vaina se jodió, ay, ay, ay,
Llora,
ay, ay,
grita,
ay, 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 ay.
nadie tiene que soy. Donde Chico Buti, ay, recojan, que llegó el que sabe de esta vaina. Hoy se ve.
Música, alegría.
¡Carlito Gómez! Volvió Cristian Agüira. ¡Que me enciende, que me enciende! Si ve que estoy llorando, siéntate a mi lado. Si ve que estoy sufriendo, es porque te quiero. Yo daría lo que sea por besar tus labios. Yo daría hasta la vida y por estar contigo.
Yo te necesito, tu boquita linda, ya me está llamando. No me digas nada, si me ve llorando, siéntate a mi lado, sácala. Si ves que estoy llorando, siéntate a mi lado. Si ves que estoy sufriendo, es porque te quiero. Yo daría lo que sea por besar tus labios. Yo daría hasta la vida y por estar contigo. Si me ves llorando, siéntate a mi lado. Con un beso tu boca, sabrá lo que siento. No me digas nada, si me ves llorando, que con tu amor yo siempre he soñado. Y sigo soñando así, de esa manera. Ahí, ¡corre! Y yo te quiero, y yo te adoro, y yo te quiero, y